What's up, guys? I'm Travis, and you're watching another episode of Upgraded RC. Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to be installing a Holmes Hobbies Crawlmaster Sport 15-turn brushed motor in a 550 can. I hope it fits. So this is what the bag looks like here. And like I said, it's basically a Crawlmaster Sport 550 15-turn. And I got to tell you, this price right here, $19.99, for the amount of performance we're going to get out of this, that is a great deal. So let's see what comes in our bag here. It doesn't look like a whole bunch. So basically we've got our motor and a sticker. Oh, two stickers. We got two stickers in there. They want our vehicle to be symmetrical with their stickers on both sides, I guess. There's our Crawlmaster Sport. That is a beautiful motor. Let's go ahead and take a better look at it here.
We're getting more bite. You see it hopping on the yeah. There it is. There goes that mirror. That help? Yeah, it did help. That was a shot. I think it did help. Did we do yours too? Yeah, that's how we do it.
Okay, before we get too far into our Crawlmaster Sport here, I want to go ahead and take the stock Dynamite 35-turn motor out of here so that we can put them side by side. I can get some measurements to make sure it's going to fit. We can also throw it on the scale and see what kind of weight differences we have, if any. So we're going to go ahead and start by removing our cover. And after you remove your cover, we're going to go ahead and remove this Allen right here and this Allen right here. Now that holds on your valve covers and your cold air intake and pretty much everything on top here that's covering up the motor. And then I'm also, you don't have to do this, but just to make sure it fits and it's a little bit easier installation for us, I'm going to go ahead and also remove this cover here in the front that has all of your pulleys and everything on it by removing this one Allen right here in the center of your crankshaft pulley. So take that one bolt out, this will come off, and take these two out here. This entire top piece will come off, leaving our motor free and exposed so we can do everything we need to do. There you go. Now we can see our motor there. And just so you guys know, it is a lot easier to take this one Allen off of your crankshaft pulley here and remove this first before you try to take this off. It seems like this little piece right here that rides next to the wire on the servo seems to catch a little bit. So if you take this off first, it makes it a lot easier. Just a little tip there. Okay, so next, now we can go ahead and remove this Allen here and this Allen here, which holds our motor down in place, and it's also an inspection cover so we can visibly see the pinion and make sure that it's on. So let's go ahead and take these two here out. All right, we got our two Allens out. We can pull this cover off here. There you go. And underneath it is our motor, and now our motor will just go ahead and pop right out. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do something. I want to plug in my battery and my remote, and I want to turn this motor in the forward direction so we can see which way our shaft is turning here. That way, when I solder the wires onto our new motor, I can put it in the same relationship so that our red wire will be positive and I won't have to change anything else around. I'm going to go real slow here. Okay, so we can physically see that our motor is turning in the clockwise direction, which is that way there. We're going to make sure our other one does exactly the same thing so we don't have to change anything around. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little piece of tape on my motor here. We'll just stick it right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker and write CW on it, which means clockwise, and it spins in this direction. That way, when I go ahead and decide to put this motor in something else, I know which direction is going to turn based on the wires that are soldered onto the negative and the positive right now. So now we can go ahead and take it out, and we'll make sure our other motor spins in the same direction. So now it's pretty easy to go ahead and get our motor out the rest of the way. All we got to do is pull it out and unplug our positive and our negative leads here from the ESC, and we'll have it completely 100% out. Now we can go ahead and remove our pinion by taking out the socket screw right here, and then we'll go ahead and take this plate off here that mounts our motor. So when you're doing this, you want to keep the same relationship. I noticed that my red or positive wire is on top here. So if I leave my motor in this relationship with the red wire on top, I notice that that's where my groove is at right here on this motor plate. So we'll go ahead and put this Allen screw here back in the top hole on our Holmes Hobby motor so that the positive wire, this Allen, and this notch are all in exactly the same place.
Wasn't enough. Oh yeah, are those the my sister made?
All right, so now that we've got our other motor out, you can really see the difference between the motors. Look at this. The Crawlmaster has such good magnets, it's just constantly trying to go back to the other. That is pretty amazing, guys. That's a really strong magnet to be able to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn them sideways here. I'll put them together. Now you can physically see the difference in the length between the cans here. If we go ahead and use our calipers, we can see that this one here is going to measure out at 49.1 millimeters, whereas our Crawlmaster measures out at 59.4. So basically there's pretty much exactly a 10 millimeter difference between the two of these. Thus, that's why they call this one a 540 and this can a 550. So what is the difference between the 550 and 540 can? Well, the difference is in the 550 can, the rotor actually has a little bit taller or longer slot on it, which is more material inside the motor for the magnets to grab onto. So because you have more material in the 550 than the 540, right away this is going to give you more power and more torque. That's just the way that the relationship works between the armature and the stator and the magnets being a little bit longer. So while we're on the subject of slots, let's go ahead and discuss them a little bit further so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Now they make 3-slot motors, 5-slot, 7, 9. I don't really know how far it goes. The larger ones are for the industrial motors and stuff. Doesn't really pertain to us. In the RC or the crawler world, basically, we're looking at 3-slot or 5-slot motors. What's the difference? A 3-slot motor is just that. It has 3 slots in it. 3 pieces of vertical steel that your copper is wrapped around, and that's what creates your armature so it can turn. So a 5-slot is just the same thing I just said. It has 5 slots of material instead of 3. What's the difference? When your motor is turning a 3-slot motor, it's only turning 3 pieces, so there's a little bit less weight and there's definitely less resistance. So it's going to want to turn faster or have a faster startup. Now on a 5-slot motor, you've got just that. You have 2 more pieces of material in there, which weighs more and also creates more resistance for the motor to turn upon startup. So your 5-slot motor will always be a smoother startup than a 3-slot. Thus, that's why John Holmes calls his Crawlmaster Sport the Crawlmaster, because it has 5 slots and it's very smooth startup. That's what you want for crawling. Now, I don't have one here, But he also has a motor called the Torque Master. Guess what? That's a 3-slot motor so that it starts up quicker and gives you more torque. Now we're interested in the crawler side today, so we're going with the 5-slot, and I'm going to go with the 550 can. That way we've got a little bit longer can for a little bit more horsepower and a little bit more torque as well. And then I chose the 15 turn, which is how many times they wrap the copper around each one of your slots. If you have less copper around your slot, your motor is going to spin a little bit faster. Thus, a 35 turn will turn slower than a 15 turn because it doesn't have, or it has more copper wrapped around it. God, this is getting confusing here. Let me show you guys a chart that Holmes Hobby has on their page. Might help you guys understand this just a little bit better. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. I've got my camera on my computer screen here, and basically if you go to Holmes Hobbies website, it's going to bring up a bunch of motors here on their webpage. You click on the one you want, which we're going with a Crawlmaster, and then it shows all their 540 cans here in different turns, and then here's all their 550 cans in different turns. We're looking for the Crawlmaster Sport 550 15 turn. We click on that, that's going to show us a picture of the motor here. It's also going to give us a list of all the features about it, and as well as an equivalent kV output chart. So this is showing us right here that the Crawlmaster Sport 550 15 turn is putting out 1250 kV. Before I go on any further here, I want to show you something. See right here where it says our vlog? That is an awesome place where you can go and learn all kinds of information. We're going to get into that here in just a second, but this is where you go when you want to do the step-by-step break-in on your motor, when you want to find out how to wash your motor, all kinds of good information in here, guys. We come down a little bit further here to the bottom of the page where it says motor recommendations. This is going to take us to our motor recommendations and speed chart right here. So this is basically going to tell you to make sure that you volt up and gear down. If you do the other direction, you're going to prematurely ruin your motor or possibly your ESC or both. So let's skip this chart here for just a second. Let's come down here to where it shows all the different recommendations for the vehicles, and we are going to go with the Axial SEX10 3. There it is right there. Now right here you'll notice that it says general trail use, and it shows a list of all the motors that are recommended for our vehicle that will go in here. And right here, if you notice, it says 12 turn is not suitable for crawling. So I'm assuming that means 12 turn, and anything less is going to have too high of a wheel speed or a kV to actually crawl really good. So if you come down here to the Crawlmaster 550, they're recommending anywhere from a 10 turn to a 15. We went with the 15 turn so we'd have a little bit less wheel speed and be able to crawl over stuff with a little bit more smoothness. Let's go back up to our chart here. Let me see, I'm going to have to turn my camera just a little bit so you guys can get all the chart in here. There we go. All right, so if we look up here at the top, it's talking about the different motors they have, and this is a 5-slot straight armature, which is what we just bought. Now we're going to come down here till we find ours. There it is right there. Crawlmaster Sport 550 15 turn is going to put out 1250 kV, just like the other output chart showed us. Now let's go ahead and go back up here, and we'll look for a 3-slot straight armature. There you go. Now let's try to find the closest one to this in a 3-turn. Right here, the Trailmaster Sport 550 can in a 12-turn is probably the closest we have to our 15. If you take this across, what is it putting out? 3100 kV. So you can see the difference between the 3-slot motor and the 5-slot motor. The 3-slot turns a lot quicker, giving it a higher kV. And then if you get a smaller turn motor, it's also going to put out a higher kV than a larger turn motor. So the smaller the number on the turns will be higher kV, and the smaller the number on the slots will also give you higher kV. So while we're right here on this page, let's go ahead and let's go back up here to where our vlog was that I was telling you about. So if you click on this, it's going to take you to their vlog page, which shows you brushed motor care, installation, troubleshooting, quick and dirty. Like I said, it shows you how to clean it. And then we can come down here a little bit further to our motor break-in. Now, basically this is going to tell you how to break in your motor so that you're not ruining your magnets as soon as you turn it on. If you go forward and backwards right away without breaking in your motor, there's a good chance you're going to crack your magnets due to stress. You need your brushes to be seated at least 90% to your commutator so that it spins smoothly and you don't have to worry about breaking or fracturing, or cracking your magnets. So right here, it tells you to place the motor on a stable surface or remove the pinion if your motor is installed in the vehicle. That's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to go ahead and just leave the pinion off of our motor and install it back in the vehicle. Then we're going to allow the motor to spin with no load. Okay, I've heard this done many times, different ways, but from Holmes Hobby, that's the way we're going to do it. No load. We're going to apply between 2.5 and 3 volts to your motor for 3 to 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my remote, and almost every remote has this on here, where you can select between, I'll say 50 or 75 or 100%. So I'm just going to take my remote and set it for 50%. Almost all of the ESCs out there that come stock in your crawlers are going to be 6 volts. So 50% of your remote is going to give you the 3 volts they're asking for. And then we'll just go ahead and let it free spin here with just the motor running, no pinion on it or anything, for about 5 minutes. And that should break in our motor pretty good. I think I'll also, just for the hell of it, once we get it installed and everything's back in, I'll go ahead and run my car around the yard here at 50% as well, just doing a couple turns over and over again for another 5 minutes. That way I know that the brushes are going to be seated good under no load and under a slight load. So this page right here will help you guys out a lot. There's all kinds of stuff in here about gearing, and like I said, this page is just awesome. Right here, look, timing your motor. If you've got one of the Pro models, that actually has timing adjustment on it. Ours does not, but you can advance or retard your timing depending on what you're trying to do. So keep in mind, this page right here, the vlog, it shows you all kinds of stuff, guys. So that's it for that. Let's go ahead and get on with getting ours back in the vehicle. Okay, so that gave us all kinds of great, useful information. Now we're going to do one more thing before we install this back in our vehicle. We're going to go ahead and weigh it and see what the difference on the weight is, then we'll get it back in there. So we'll come back over here to our trusty scale. We can get a good weight on here and we'll see what they weigh. Now we'll start with our Dynamite 35 turn, the stock motor, and it's not really fair because the wires are on here, so I'm going to try to hold the weight off of the scale from the wires so that we can get an accurate reading here. So it looks like it's, let's just say about 170, give or take. It's fluctuating a little bit. Let's say 173. Okay, 173 on the stock one. Let's see what the Holmes Hobby weighs. I'm sure this is going to weigh more. Oh yeah, 215. So 173 and 215. There you go. There's the difference in the weight. All right, so now we can go ahead and install our motor plate back onto the motor so that we can mount it up in the vehicle and go ahead, and I'm probably just going to use jumper wires so that we can make sure the motor is spinning in the correct direction with the correct colored lead hooked up to the terminal. So what we did here is I just went ahead and made a jumper wire so that we plugged in the same round terminals into our motor leads as the motor had. And then I ran the jumper wire to the other side here, and I'm just using a pair of alligator clamps here to touch on the terminals so that we can see which way it's spinning. Make sure that you don't let these two terminals touch after you're plugged in and your battery and everything are on. That might be a bad day, so be very careful those leads don't touch. Go ahead and turn your car on and everything, your remote on, and now I can turn my motor, and there it goes. It is definitely, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is definitely spinning in the correct direction with my positive or red wire hooked up to the red terminal on the back. So now we know that we can go ahead and solder this on correctly and don't have to unsolder it or change or reverse anything on our servo or nothing. It will be installed the correct way.
Oh, that big.
Now because this motor comes with no motor leads, we're going to go ahead and have to put our own on. So we're going to be using this 14 AWG silicone wire, which by the way actually uses 16 stocks. So 16 is a larger number, it's a smaller wire. Because these connectors will hold the 14 AWG, we're going to go ahead and go with the 14 gauge. So we have a little bit thicker wire going to our motor, and then we're putting these 4mm male gold connectors on there. So what we're going to do here to go ahead and solder these on is we're going to take our iron and our connectors here, and we're going to heat the side up until it's hot enough to accept solder. And once it accepts solder, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit in here. Should be getting pretty hot here quick. There it goes. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit in there. We're going to do the same thing to the other side here. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing and just put a little bit on our wire too. It's a good thing to have the same kind of solder on your wire that you've got on your connectors. That way everything just flows free and they're very malleable together. They like each other, so to speak. So go ahead and just put a little bit on your wire as well. Not a big deal. We'll get some on there just to get it tinted a little bit. There it goes. All right, now that we've got both of our wires tinted and we've also added some solder to our connectors here, we're going to go ahead and heat the connectors back up until we can see it get shiny in there and get liquidy, and then we're just going to go ahead and stick this right in there all the way down like so. And we're going to move it around a little bit until you can hear it getting crunchy. That's how you know that the solder is in between all the wires. Then we're just going to hold it very steady like this to make sure that it cools down enough that it stays exactly the way that we want to. And there you go. That's a pretty good connection. I'm not going to touch it and burn myself and pull on it yet, but let's do the other one here, and then it'll give that one enough chance to cool down so we can pull on it. All right, so our next step here is to go ahead and get a small piece of heat shrink, and we're going to go ahead and stick it on our wire here, and we'll pull this all the way down to the end. Once we get it to the end, we're going to put it on here so that it covers up the bottom part of the connection, but not the top, so that it looks just like this right here. Now, let's go ahead and heat it up with a lighter so that this heat shrink will shrink around our wire and our connector and make them solid in one piece. And it's great insulation. You don't need to put any electrical tape or anything on there after this. This is very professional, very clean look, and it takes care of all your insulation for you. So there you go. That's what it's supposed to look like. Now we're going to do the other side, but before we go ahead and solder this to our terminals on the motor, make sure that you drop another piece of heat shrink on the other end, because when you after you get done soldering your wire to your terminals, you won't be able to get this over the other end and you'll probably be screwed. So just go ahead and leave that hanging on there, and then you'll solder your other end to the motor terminal, and then we're just going to slide this right back up over that and use that for insulation on the terminal. Now just like before, we're going to go ahead and pre-tint our wires again. That way the solder's already on these when we touch them to the terminal, make it a lot easier. Get that hot enough to go ahead and accept some solder here. There we go. So we'll just go ahead and put a little bit of solder on here to pre-tint it. Maybe just a little bit more than you put before when you did the terminals, because we're just going to take just a little bit more. Go ahead and do the other side here.
Maybe loose. Your opinion may be loose. I don't know how. Look at this and see if that's right, or the way you have it set up. Look how far off it is. Looks like it's slid in. Good. Okay.
It's alive. It's alive, and it doesn't look nearly as nice as it did this morning.
No.
Seems to have some dirt on it. I don't even know where I lost my RC car.
Behind the bushes over here.
Oh, there it is. Don't get up. I found it.
Okay guys, so I drilled a little 1/8 inch hole here in the side of my aluminum block so I could fit the 1/8 inch shaft from the motor in there, and it sits there and it makes it so much easier to go ahead and put your terminals on. Anyway, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and tint your terminal as well. And if you notice, I'm using a smaller iron here. You're not supposed to use more than 40 watts on the terminals. You can melt the plastic and stuff here. So just go ahead and heat your terminal up a little bit and tint it by putting a little bit of your solder on there. Now we can go ahead and, if you guys notice too, I'm also soldering these on here sideways. I put the motor in and it's a very, very tight fit. It does fit, but it's tight. So we're soldering them on here sideways to make sure it fits a little bit better than me having to take and grind some of that plastic piece down. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more solder to this. All right, once you get your heat shrink on there, just go ahead and heat it up with a lighter or a heat gun just like you did before. And there you go, that's it. That's what is entailed in soldering your leads onto your motor the correct way. I think that turned out really good, guys. I think it looks great. It's going to work awesome. Putting these on here sideways is going to give us that little bit of extra room that we need so it's not hitting anything. Let's go ahead and mount this up without our pinion, and then we're going to go ahead and do our break-in. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys this piece right here with your pulleys and your fan belt and everything on there. This does fit back on there, but wow, is it tight. So if we put this on here, let me just show you guys how well it fits now, how tight it is. A little bit of a pain to get in there. There you go. So it does fit. I was able to push it all the way on, but look how tight this is. If we would have soldered our wires straight instead of sideways on there, there's no way this big 550 can would have fit in here. Now we're going to go ahead and take our remote and we're going to move our selector switch here at the bottom to 50% power, and we're going to run that for about 5 minutes. That way our 6-volt system is putting out 3 volts for 5 minutes, just like Holmes Hobbies wanted. Now, if you don't have the selector switch on here to be able to turn it down from 100 to 50, all you got to do is just go ahead and hold your remote on about halfway for around 5 minutes. Okay, we've got our motor sitting in the cradle here with the pinion off. Our remote is at 50%. We're going to go ahead and run this for 5 minutes, and that way our motor should be pretty broke in. Here we go. By the way, we are only going to run this in one direction. That's important. So one direction, 50%, 5 minutes. Okay, so we ran that for 5 minutes, about 5.5. So it should be pretty good. And then go ahead and put your pinion gear back on there and make sure that your socket screw is on the flat part of the shaft. And I would also go ahead and put some Loctite on that socket head screw. And also the screws that you use to put your motor plate onto your motor, put some Loctite on those too. I didn't tell you that, but if any of that comes loose while you're moving, that's going to be catastrophic, guys. It'd be really bad to have all kinds of loose bolts spinning around inside your motor. So go ahead and Loctite that up and put it back together, and then I'm going to go run it outside for about 5 minutes at half throttle with just a little bit of a load.
Right up that way.
That's what I'm trying.
Oh. Oh boy. How about that?
Okay, so we did manage to make the 550 can fit in the SCX-10-3 where the 540 was mounted up before. It is tight, I'm not going to lie to you, it was very tight. If we would not have soldered our motor leads onto the motor sideways, there's no way it would have ever fit. It's just super tight. But I did not have to cut anything or grind anything or modify anything in any way, with the exception of the servo wire I pulled out from underneath the motor mount where it was riding before. It gave us a little bit more room on the outside, and it's not chafing near as bad. And I sure as hell didn't want to pinch it or cut it for any stupid reason. There's no reason why we can't have it on the outside. Plenty of room there. But I went and crawled this, guys. Oh my God, it feels like we have an enormous amount of more power. It just feels so powerful, and yet it goes so slow. I can just barely touch this to where you just barely see it even moving. You're not even sure if it's moving. I was really impressed at how slow the crawl is on this. And in the future, we're going to be putting a Holmes ESC in here, which that combination, I can't even wait. That's going to be awesome. For right now, I'm extremely happy with this motor and the turnout that we had on it. I will do some more crawling here in the future, and I will let you guys know what I really think of it. But as of right now, I am very impressed with the little bit of crawling that I did. It was an awesome upgrade, and I feel it was one of the things that should have been done. So with that, guys, we are pretty much out of time. I'm wrapping up this video. There's not really anything else to say here. I will go crawl some more, and I'll let you guys know what I really think. But until then, you guys go have fun, go crawl, go bash, go do whatever you do that makes you happy. And as always, if you guys have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to ask me. Just leave a comment down in the section, and I will get back with you as soon as I can. It may not be right away, but I promise I'll get back with you. Go have fun, guys. Until our next video, which is going to be video number 11. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be yet, but I've got an idea. You guys have probably got an idea. I'm Travis. You're watching Upgraded RC. Peace out.